afternoon. I've got a channeled message. It feels pretty important for some of you. There are those that have gotten so used to receiving that it feels really natural to accept what is given. And then there are those that have been given so little in their lives, and actually through trauma or adversity mostly, learned that they only feel safe to be the one giving. Through greatly imbalanced dynamics in the home, most likely, that child learned that they needed to provide service, put on a show, cater to, and even kowtow to someone or the environment around them. This created a sense of unworthiness and a feeling of always having to prove oneself in order to be seen or accepted. Thus, you learned to make yourself very useful and now have a hard time receiving as a result of it. This is something that I've struggled with my entire life. And I can feel the emotions rising within me as I express. I have never felt comfortable receiving because I've always been in the position of either being squashed down to a smaller size or being put in a position where my power was taken away from me. And in those places that I existed, and this goes for anyone watching too, this might be your story, there was a sense of needing to manipulate the situation in whatever way I could as a child to just get what I needed. And sometimes that looked like putting on a show for a little bit of love. Sometimes that looked like pretending that I wasn't hurt when I was, in order to just be, to avoid abuse, to avoid being, further oppressed, okay? So your story could be very different, and I'm abbreviating the hell out of this. That wasn't really a story at all. It was really just an example of one of the 222 when I looked up. One of the examples of how you might have ended up being a person who feels like they can't take up any space. I just saw somebody cowering in a corner, like trying to shrink down and make themselves as small as possible. It might have been learned through your parenting. Maybe your parents didn't treat you that way, but they were acting out. You learn by example. So if you were watching your own parent shrink themselves down like this, that's how you learned that was safe. That was the safest way to be, which is just make yourself smaller. For a lot of you, you might have garnered attention that you didn't want because you have maybe a special kind of spirit. You have a special kind of spark that people recognized early, and it either offended them greatly, it either made them jealous or envious. Even adults, all right? Adults felt threatened by your light, or whatever that spark was that made you special. And they wanted to make you smaller. They wanted to have control over you because they felt threatened by the amount of power that you held, even as a child. And if you're one of these people, you probably naturally just made yourself smaller. And even in something as simple as, keeping yourself from shining. And I said small, that's not small. I was going to use a specific example and I was guided out of it. So, but it could be something as big, I should say, as pretending that you're not beautiful. Pretending, and not because you're coy, because you're scared, because you don't feel safe. People want what you have. And this could be anything. I think I'm supposed to just skip the examples because I'm getting too bogged down in the details of it. But the point is, if you're one of these people, you have a hard time receiving. And not only that, there's definitely a second message coming in here about these people with this spark that have felt alienated their entire lives, that have felt like the black sheep, that have felt like they didn't fit in, that never felt chosen because it's that, ugly duckling turns into a beautiful swan kind of story. Everybody, maybe you were an outcast, right? Maybe you were alienated in your community or your family because of a way that you stood out. Maybe it was physically, maybe it was just your essence. But the point is that people counted you out early. And now it feels like not only are you learning how to receive for the first time, the tables are turning, you're learning how to love yourself, you're learning how to nurture yourself, and thus the world is shifting to show you that same reflection. Because it is the essence and energy that we put out that we invite back into our lives. The law of attraction is real. And so if you were raised to be this tiny little bug underneath someone's shoe, naturally, you hold that energy. And then other people see that and they play off of it. And that's why a lot of people that have had lives like this and tend to attract a lot of takers and narcissists and people that are kind of dark, and they take their power away, because this is a dynamic that the person themselves learned at an early age, but also it's a dynamic that other people can sense, and they know that they can take advantage of it. So you might have found yourself in a lot of situations with people that were really toxic, that were draining you, that were exerting power over you, and you being trained to kind of be this small little version of yourself took it. You didn't know that you could take your power back at any time and say no. And it's like, maybe right now you're waking up to that. And I think that's why I'm smiling right now, because I can feel it. There's almost a sense of being like, wait a minute, this whole time, this was actually a very different story than I realized. Here, this whole time, you thought you were not special. You thought you were small. You thought you were insignificant. You thought you were less than others. You know, not valuable, not valued. But it's actually the fucking opposite. And you might be waking up to that reality right now. That it's actually because you're special that people treated you that way. It's actually because you are different that your life played out the way that it did. And it played out that way to serve you. And it might seem like a cruel joke if you've had a really hard life. And Cinderella is a great example, because she was this, I rewatched it recently. It's actually a really beautiful film. Sounds silly, but it's about this, you know, this girl who's basically a servant in her home, right? And she's such a beautiful light and such a peaceful soul, and she's very gifted and beautiful. And the people around her are jealous, right? They're jealous of her light, so they shut her away in this room at the top of the house, and she's basically their slave, right? And so at a certain point, she realizes that God favors her. I mean, a fairy godmother shows up to make all her dreams come true, so she must be favored. And Disney played on this a lot, and I'm not to say anything about Disney himself, I don't know, you know, flawed, I'm sure, but I actually love Disney movies because they created a culture for us children, especially those of us who grew up in poverty or in really tough situations. They gave us something to dream for. Those movies planted a seed within us. These movies about people with big hearts, with nothing in their pockets, you know, but a big dream in their heart. And they gave us something to wish for and to hope for. And so if you're one of these people who feels like you've been a bug under someone's shoe your entire life, or many, many, many different people's most likely, you might just be waking up to the fact that you're actually really fucking amazing. You might be waking up to the fact that you're actually kind of powerful. And the power that you hold has been a threat to the people around you, even your own friends and family. People have always competed with you. People have always tried to one-up you in some way, and you were never in competition with them. You were never even thinking about it that way. You were just trying to express yourself. But it's like people envied, even when you expressed, they envied what you said, they envied what you experienced, but they had no idea what you had to go through behind the scenes. They had no idea that you were a real-life Cinderella, getting beaten or getting, you know? And somehow you held on to your beauty, somehow you held on to your grace, your power, through all of that, and most importantly, you held on to your pure heart. But if you're one of these people, it's your time. The tables are turning. The hourglass is being turned upside down. Everything that was on the bottom is now going to be on the top. And if it's side to side, everything that was on one side is going to go to the complete other side, because everything's shifting in your life right now. So if you feel a lot of upheaval in your life, don't fret, okay? It's because things are being rearranged to put you where you rightly belong, which is in a position of power, because you have a good heart and you were actually here to change lives. You've always been, but you had to go through a lot of battles to get here. And you've been tested by God and you passed. So get ready to receive some abundance, because you deserve it. And it is your time. It is your time. Open up and learn how to receive, all right? I love you.